Well, hello, Penny Dix here with you again with the second part of a new look at relationships. Now, before we go back to the story where Psyche has lost her beloved because she held the candle up and the wax dropped down and burnt him and he ran off, basically saying, "Never, never seek to know me." I want to tell you where I get this, where I got this story from originally, because there's a beautiful series of books by um, a very renowned psychoanalyst, basically a Jungian psychoanalyst called Robert A. Johnson. And he wrote a series of lovely books. This one is called She, and it's basically understanding feminine psychology. It's surprisingly quite small. I think this is just the headlines because I'm sure all you guys out there would agree that understanding feminine psychology takes a lifetime, and even then you don't understand us. But so the guys don't feel left out. This may also help you to get an insight into what happens to women when we just kind of go into one in ourselves and you just cannot connect with us. But also so you don't feel left out, and so that women hopefully can get a better understanding of why men are the way they are. Next week, the next videos next week on Monday and Monday and Wednesday are going to be by this same author, Robert A. Johnson, but they're about he. And that's really worth listening to, because I think by using these myths and kind of ancient truths to look and try and understand how we all work, it can really help us at least understand each other, even if our relationships are not working out well. I think it can help us get to a point where hopefully one can look beyond the state where we completely misunderstand each other. Yes, and there's also another book I really, really want to recommend, which is by the lovely author C.S. Lewis, and it's called Till We Have Faces. And it's really another take on this whole Psyche and Eros story. And in a sense, until we can show our true face to each other in a relationship, to the world, first of all, we can't have a true relationship with ourselves till we show and acknowledge and honor our own true face to ourselves. And when we're able to start doing that, we're able to then sort of progress to the next stage of meeting another in true relationship. And that really would it helps, obviously, if the other is also of a similar developmental stage of their own psychology and are able to look within at their own inner self and to acknowledge their kind of dark side, their shadow side, as it's often called. There's some questions that I've been asked, and one that stood out is, how do we prevent past experiences and say, difficult and challenging and bad experiences in relationships? How do we prevent these experiences from marring our current new relationships? And it is really hard, this, because one of the things I'm going to talk about on Saturday's vlog is how this all translates into modern life, into our current situation, and especially into the situation of lockdown, where we're spending so much time in each other's company, and how isolating and lonely that can be. So how do we move on in relationships and not make the same mistakes over and over again? Well, one quite, I think, for me, simple answer to that is, until we truly know ourselves, then we can't truly know another or form a good relationship with anybody, be it of the opposite sex or the same sex. We have to be able to acknowledge ourselves, kind of warts and all. We have to know our shadow. We have to understand our unconscious or subconscious, as it can also be termed. And there are processes we go through to get to the point of really understanding our inner world, and they can't be rushed. So, in some ways, maybe understanding what happens to Psyche when the fabulous paradise and palace is taken away from her by Eros, who has told her, "Stop, do not seek to know me." Maybe the next part of her journey goes in some way to explain some of these things about how we can recognize when we get involved in new relationships what it is that, or where it is that we've gone wrong before, and how we, in some ways, we can't avoid having the projections that we will put onto the other. They're always going to be there. We have to go through this state or stages of falling in love with the other and not seeing them as they truly are. And it is only if we're able to get beyond that part, if we can get past those projections that we put onto the other, that we can form true relationship. And to get there, it's going to involve breakdown in that relationship in some form or another. And because of that breakdown, that is like the make or break time in a relationship. And we will have all been there in many ways throughout our lives. And it either moves on to become something far more meaningful and lasting, or it doesn't. Because if both sides of the relationship aren't able to move beyond the stage where they allow the projections that they have projected on the other of the beloved, if they can't move beyond that stage, then the marriage will, or the relationship, that shows how old I am. And I've only been married once, and that was only for 18 months. Tried it, didn't like it. It can only move beyond that stage to true relationship once one has at least gone through the stages of allowing the projections on the other to drop. Now, this also links in with what I was talking about in the last videos when I was talking about narcissism, because the narcissism of both sides of the relationship, of both people, will be there. And in a sense, that's what supports and holds the projections for the other. And when that starts to drop away, and if one has really done the inner work and can be seen without the projections, then there is a chance to move on. But you have to have also really worked with your narcissism. And that can be a really big sticking point for many, many people. And I still hear a lot of negative comments directed towards, say, men who are attacked for being narcissistic. And it's all very well to be attacked for your narcissism, but we have to understand and go a bit further than that and understand why these guys are trapped and locked in a state of being which is incredibly painful to them because they are unable to form good, loving relationships. And it is only if they reach rock bottom and that narcissistic framework can be cracked open, that they can begin to start rebuilding and understanding who they are. Now, that hopefully I will be covering, as I said, in the blogs that are in the next set of videos, the blogs get muddled up, in the next set of videos, which are going to be about masculine psychology and understanding what makes men work. And as I said, that's just as relevant for women to understand as it is for men. So having just made that little introduction, let's go back to the story, because what's happened is Psyche has lost her beloved. And how often does this happen in a relationship? You know, suddenly they stop calling the other party. The guy doesn't answer your texts, and you're left hanging thinking, what have I done? Where have I gone wrong? So Psyche falls to the sort of the depths of her soul. She becomes actually suicidal. She doesn't want to live anymore. She loved this guy and she's lost him. And she is so devastated by the pain of this loss that she doesn't know how she can ever recover. Now, in ancient Greek times and Roman times, they knew that what they had to do was plead with one of the gods, the relevant gods who ruled, in this case, love and relationships. So Psyche knows that actually the god Eros, she doesn't realize that the god Eros is actually the guy that she held the candle up to, that she'd been spending all this time with. She doesn't realize that. So she knows she's got to somehow get to the god Eros to plead with him, to show her the way, to show her where she's gone wrong and how she can get this lover back. But she knows actually to get to Eros, she's got to get through his mother. She's actually got to go to Aphrodite, who is the goddess of love and the mother of Eros. Now, that's a bit scary for Psyche, because Aphrodite was the one that got her into the mess in the first place. She was the one that demanded she marry Death and had her father chain her to a rock so that, Eros came along and was supposed to shoot an arrow into her and kill her. And in fact, of course, he saw her and fell madly in love and carried her off and thought no one will know. So she knows she's got to really go to Aphrodite. And this is like that state where deep within, we know really what we've got to do in order to get to a place where we can understand the other in a relationship better. But we don't want to do that because it's too difficult. This will often be in a counseling session where the client will say, "Oh, I don't know. I'm so confused. I really don't know. I don't understand it." Now, actually, that confusion is about the fact that we do know. We do know really what we've got to do, but we really don't want to allow that into full consciousness. So Aphrodite goes to all the other goddesses and asks them, pleads with them what she should do and how she can get to Eros. And of course, they all say to her the same thing. Well, sorry, we can't help you with this. You've got to actually go to the boss. You've got to go to Aphrodite. And she keeps getting the same answer. So it's a bit like we go round and we check with all our friends, what do you think? What do you think? And we, in a sense, we get different answers from all of them, which leaves us even more confused as to what we should do about this beloved that we've lost. And so we're left in this terrible state of not knowing and confusion. So, and this happens when we get to that point where we just hit rock bottom. And we just don't want to go on. And we do feel in many ways suicidal. Now, this is a point where women either go through this state of being very still and sitting with it, because what we have to do when we go down to the depths of our soul to really try and understand it is we have to actually stop everything. We have to, in a sense, pull up the drawbridge of our inner castle. We have to actually not let anyone in. We have to stop listening to all the other gods and goddesses telling us we should do this and we should do that, or we could do this, because we have to find the answer out for ourselves. And in a sense, that visit of Psyche to Aphrodite is about her reaching the point where she realizes she has no choice but to actually ask Aphrodite what she must do. Now, in the story, she does find the courage to go to Aphrodite and ask her. And this is symbolic in a way of when we reach that point, we think, well, maybe I've got to change something in me. Maybe it's not about him at the moment changing. maybe I have to change something. So Aphrodite says, okay, probably as she's filing her nails and looking at this mere mortal, thinking, well, so you think you understand about love? Well, I'm Aphrodite, and I know everything there is to know about love. And if you want to have your beloved back, I'm going to have to get you to do some things for me. I'm going to set you some tasks. And if you manage to succeed with all these tasks, then I'll tell you where he is and you can go and be reunited with him. Well, Psyche says, okay, so what do I have to do? Well, this is this stage we get to in our journey within, if you like, when we're sitting on our own, wondering what we can do, feeling very sorry for ourselves. And we reach a point where we think, oh gosh, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll sort out a cupboard and just not think about it. Because what Aphrodite asks Psyche to do in the very first, buongiorno, Daniela. I see Daniela is watching from Italy. Good morning, buongiorno. And what we often do is, so Aphrodite says, you see this pile of seeds? I want you to sort out the wheat from the chaff. So this is like when we open our wardrobes and we think, oh my God, where do I start? And we shut them again because we think, no, I can't do that. So metaphorically, Aphrodite's first task about sorting out the wheat from the chaff is about the fact that we have to actually get down to basics. We just have to sort out the good bits from the bad bits. Now, Psyche looks at this pile of seeds and she thinks, well, I just don't have a chance. How on earth am I ever going to sort this out? So she sits there and thinks about it and cries. At this point, a whole load of ants appear and they say, it's okay, we'll help you. And as she weeps and wails by the side of this pile of seeds, they sort them out and the task is done. Now, this shows that there is always some way. There is something that will often come in an unexpected way to help us. If I think of my own life, say when I've tackled my cupboards and thought, oh, I can't do them, usually at some point, some very kind, meaning friend has said, well, actually, if I can have the things you don't want because they don't fit you or whatever, I'll help you. And so suddenly the task is easy. So Aphrodite thinks, that was far too easy. I'm going to have to find a more difficult task for her because I'm damned if she's going to have my son Eros. So the next task she sets is a bit more difficult. And this is to collect some golden fleece from the ram that is the golden ram and to bring that to Aphrodite. Well, Psyche thinks, no, I don't stand a chance with this one because there is absolutely no way that any of the rams that protect this golden ram are going to let me near the hedge where bits of the fleece will get caught. So what happens is the rams tell her, wait till it's dark, wait till they're all sleeping, and then go and gather some off the bushes, which is what she does. And sometimes we forget. Good morning, Natalie. Hope you're enjoying. So she gets the golden fleece, which has been, it's like we have to face these inner monsters in ourselves. And, there are many times that we feel we're going to fail in this journey to trying to understand ourselves better. So the next task Aphrodite sets her, because she brings the golden fleece, is even more difficult because she asks for her to take a small container and carry some water from the river Styx, which is in the underworld, back to Aphrodite. Now, why this is particularly difficult is that the river Styx in ancient mythology is the river that flows into the underworld and into hell and into Hades. And it has a four-headed dog called Cerberus that guards it. So somehow she has got to get past this. What happens is, and at this point we have a tower makes its appearance, and this tower talks. So this is like the constructs of civilization. So there is some part of her internal kind of inner castle system that is beginning to wake up and says, well, take something to give to the dogs. Take 4 seed cakes from the seeds. And then that way the dog will be busy, or the dog's heads will be busy while you collect the water. And so she does this. And so what happens is she gives them the cakes, but an eagle also comes down and says, look, it's far too dangerous for you to approach and go any further nearer to the river. So give me this little container and I will go and scoop out some water and bring it back to you, which is what the eagle does. Now, the eagle is very interesting because there are times in our lives when we have to have what one would call eagle sight. We have to be able to rise up and just see things from a different perspective. I used to find when I was younger that when I was going through difficult times, if at some point during this difficult time I found myself perhaps jetting off somewhere because I was lucky enough to be going on holiday, somehow when I was up in the plane and looking out of the window at the clouds and the ground below, everything down there suddenly seemed rather small and maybe not as important as I had made it. So this is what's symbolic, in a sense, of the eagle's sight. Now, having taken this last little container of water back to Aphrodite, she thinks, well, I'm going to give her one more task. And my God, if she succeeds with this one, I think she's probably earned her place at the side of my son. So this final task is even more seemingly impossible. Psyche has to go across the river Styx, down into the underworld, past this four-headed dog again, past the dying man in the stream, past the people begging for help, and she has to go into Persephone's realm. Now, Persephone is queen of the underworld. If you remember, I talked about her when we were talking about narcissism. And Persephone has a pot of magic ointment, skin ointment, that gives you eternal beauty. Aphrodite wants a pot of that. So Psyche duly thinks, well, here we go, one more task. But she's told before she goes, whatever you do, don't open the pot. It has to come to Aphrodite intact. Do not look inside. So Psyche remembers this and off she goes. She manages to get across the river Styx. She takes some more seed cakes for the four-headed dog Cerberus. She ignores the dying man, because this is often what we have to do when we're in the underworld, when we're going through our psyche phase. We cannot be there for everybody. We cannot help everybody. You know, as women, it is a kind of a natural kind of part of us that we want to help everybody. It is our, if you like, maternal nature. But we cannot do this. Sometimes we just have to be there for ourselves. We just have to go within and serve ourselves. So she finally gets into Persephone's realm, where Persephone has laid out a feast for her to welcome her guest. Now, Psyche also knows it would be very rude to ignore Persephone's kind offer of a feast, but she's also been told, you must not accept anything from Persephone other than this pot of magic beauty balm. Because if you do, you will be condemned to stay in the realm of Hades forever. Now, Psyche doesn't want that because she knows if she stays in this dark, dark place, the underworld, forever, then she's no hope of ever finding true love. So she very politely says, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. And then finds her courage and asks Persephone, could I possibly have a pot of your magic beauty balm, the one that gives eternal beauty? And Persephone says, of course you may. So she hands her the pot. And Psyche thinks, my God, I really hope this is the last of the tasks. I've done it. And this is like when we begin to come up out of that deep, dark place and begin to perhaps have some idea of how we can change things for ourselves because we've gone within. We've sorted out the kind of the everyday things. We've recovered a bit to think maybe I can approach this relationship in a different way, from a more realistic place. But she makes another mistake. On the journey up, she opens the pot. She says, surely just a little bit of this eternal beauty balm, I could just rub it into my cheeks and leave the rest for Aphrodite. And then when my beloved finds me and meets me again, he'll love me forever because I'll be eternally beautiful. Oh dear. Well, this is a very big mistake, and a mistake we make many, many times. We just cannot resist looking in the pot. It's like we cannot resist looking at that text and answering it straight away in the middle of the night, when we know really we should sit on it, we should wait, think about it in the morning. Maybe it's actually better to leave it unanswered. So what happens for Psyche is she falls into a sleep of death because the balm is actually a death balm. And this is a stage we will all reach at some point in our own stages of development, where it seems like all hope is lost. There is absolutely no way we can ever recover. Now, here's where the kind of magical part comes, and I'm going to finish this at this point because I'm going to tell you what the magical part is in the next vlog, where I bring everything into present day and how we resolve it all. Because we need to know what happens next and how Psyche recovers from this. Or does she recover? Because to find true relationship, something else has to happen. And I'm going to tell you about that in the next one, which will be on Saturday afternoon at 4:00. So for now, it was a long vlog today. If you stayed with it all the way through, God bless you, thank you. But it's a long story and it's a lot to talk about in just even 2 short sessions. And the third one on Saturday to just kind of tie up the loose ends and bring it in to present day. But don't forget, next week is going to be about masculine psychology. And that's interesting for all of us because, these poor guys get vastly misunderstood. So that's for you guys next week. But do listen to these ones about women's psychology because on Saturday especially, I will try and explain a little bit more about how women work. So thank you so much for all the wonderful support, comments, kind followings, likes, shares. It is truly appreciated. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a great day. Bye for now.